Welcome to Secrets for a Happy Life podcast, where we dive deep into the journeys, strategies, and insights that lead to true happiness and fulfillment. My name is Petra Kmetec Bitenc, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Courtney, mindset and emotional intelligence coach and owner of the Grow and Glow Co.
Okay, I can feel fear around something and still do it, come out the other side. Oh, then it was, well, it happens in every home. This shit happens in every home. It's normal. And your mind actually does that because
Courtney has an incredible story of transformation. In our conversation, we'll explore the powerful concept of pain to power, where Courtney shares how she transmuted her darkest days into her greatest motivators. So, whether you are seeking personal growth, coping strategies, or inspiration to turn your struggles into strengths, this episode is packed with wisdom and actionable advice to help you craft your own happy life. So, grab a comfy seat, a notebook, and let's jump on this transformative journey. Courtney, it's an honor to have you here. Let's dive into how you harnessed your darkest days to fuel your brightest successes. I'm really curious how you did that, because I think many women can relate to that. So, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, we've just been chatting just before we hit record, and I'm so excited for this conversation and for everyone to listen to it. So, the way I love to describe this, and we was talking about this a little bit earlier, is like everybody, if they choose it, gets to have a pain to power story no matter what they've been through. And if you're happy, I can go from the very beginning for me, so I can like go through the story of where I was to where I am now. So I grew up in Manchester in England, and when I was growing up, the generation above me, let's say, in England are very brush things under the carpet, like pretend everything's normal, not very in touch with their emotions.
I feel you.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, because it's more of a Europe thing, I guess, or even a world thing. But I think it's getting better now. We're coming up, we're seeing the light a little bit. But definitely, when I was a kid, when I was very young, it was not the norm to kind of really be open about how you're feeling, and if I was feeling a certain way or if certain things happened, they would just get brushed under the carpet, and that was my norm. Now this probably happens with a lot of the listeners here, but if this happened with you and you had quite a number of instances of traumatic experiences when you was younger. So for instance, I unfortunately did grow up around domestic violence, and it was very normalized. I genuinely thought, not that there was nothing wrong with it, but for so long throughout my late kind of teens and when I got a bit older to understand that it was wrong, in my mind though, then it was, well, it happens in every home. This shit happens in every home. It's normal. And your mind actually does that because it's because of a coping mechanism. So your mind will tell you that things are normal, that it's not that bad, so you can go on with your day to day and kind of continue to function, okay? So that was like a main running theme when I was very little. I seen things that no child should ever see, but I didn't realize the severity of what I was seeing, almost, because as I said, things get brushed under the carpet, and that's just how it played out. And additional to that, there was a lot of addiction in my family, drugs, alcohol, mental illness. So like I grew up with a lot of chaos, let's put it. A lot of chaos, a lot of I always like to use the phrase, because it resonates with a lot of people, almost like treading on eggshells. So you don't know when you don't know when the next blow up's gonna be. You're kind of like I remember a really vivid memory of me kind of lying in bed when I was younger, stiff, because I was we'll maybe get into this a bit later on, more stiff in terms of I was heightened, I was activated, my nervous system was activated, really on high alert, waiting and listening to the type of footsteps that walk through the door. Because if they were drunk footsteps, that would mean there was a possibility of violence. So this is like the detail in which I remember as a child. And again, I never really like processed any of that. So let's fast forward on the timeline a little bit, because this is the pain to power story. We'll fast forward a little bit on the timeline. I am a little bit older, maybe in my teens, let's say. I went through another chunk of trauma here. My mum and dad split up. It was very, very messy. I knew the ins and outs. I was still very young, 14, 15, but again, didn't process any of it. However, what was happening now was, by that time, I had already created a narrative of who I was, of how safe it was to connect with people, how safe the world was. And of course, because I went through what I went through, I didn't feel safe. I didn't love myself. I didn't find myself worthy. And that was overspilling and coming out in behaviours such as I was very, very promiscuous. So I slept around a lot from a very, very young age, because to me that was the only kind of way to get male attention, to get males to like me. It's the way I thought the only way I knew how, kind of thing. What else? I was very, very angry. I did things to friends that I would like lash out physically, which is not okay, obviously, but I didn't know. Back then I just thought I was a horrible person. So then I began to hate myself even more.
Yeah, you had a lot of stuff inside.
It was like all inside, and it was all coming out in these really unhealthy ways. And then I got into a 7-year relationship from 16 to 22. So that was a long time. That relationship, I will always love him and he'll always have a special place in my heart, but it was not a good relationship because I didn't have no evidence of what a healthy relationship was. I kind of attractive. We was both kind of come from like really traumatic backgrounds. So it was very much trauma bonding, very much roller coaster, up and down, always on and off. It was never violent, but it was very like controlling in that way. And I was toxic as well. I hold my hands up, like I will always take responsibility, because that is part of the Pain to Power story as well, taking responsibility. And that was just very, very up and down for 7 years. And then at 23, I thought, fuck this. I am leaving. Now that sounds really empowering, but when I look back, it was almost as if I'd spent all my teenage years and my early 20s trying to run away from pain, but I didn't know what I was necessarily running away from. I was just trying to find the answers to feeling good, I guess, but without knowing, this was all subconscious. So I ran away to Australia, the furthest place you can possibly run away to from the UK, right? So we go to Australia. Habits there are very much drinking, drugs, again, this sense of running away. Although I was having a really fucking good time, obviously, in Australia, because it's beautiful, I would take things to the extremes. I would get myself into really dangerous situations, like with males, drinking, taking drugs, and then things kind of hit rock bottom. And what I want to say here is, if you do have a lot of pain, if you have experienced similar things to me, you don't have to wait until you hit rock bottom, but most people do.
Most people do.
And most people do, because there's a saying, and it's something like, people don't change until the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of changing, because it's not easy to change. So people will wait until the actual pain of staying the way things are is so like you cannot take anymore, then you go for the uncomfortability of change. But until that point, people do find it difficult to go enough is enough, but you can do it, because I've seen it in my clients. They act before rock bottom. But I'm going to be honest, I did not. I
also did not. I also had similar stuff.
So I hit rock bottom, and that in my teens I did always experience anxiety on top of everything else. It didn't control my life, but it was apparent and present more often than not. And then I think because I'd always felt like I was running and I thought Australia was going to be the answer and XYZ, relationship and whatever, and it wasn't. After COVID, I think because obviously we had a lot of time to ourselves, I did hit rock bottom. The anxiety, I developed an anxiety disorder. This was back in probably 2019, 20. I couldn't move out the house. I couldn't concentrate in work. I was cancelling events with friends, and it just started to take over my life. And the thing is, I always had these themes running through my life, but I was always a fun, like get up and go and make shit happen kind of person. It's just that I was kind of controlled by fear for the majority of my life. But then the anxiety stopped me from having any kind of fun, any kind of joy. I looked in the mirror and I was just full of disgust, full of hate, full of shame, full of anxiety, crying every day with panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And then one day I was just like, fuck this. I am not doing this anymore, but I'm not running. I'm not running anymore. And this is the point that in anyone's pain to power story it's the line in the sand. It's when you go, I'm not going to run anymore. I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn and face all of the shit. And I did. I went on this huge journey of going through my story and going, okay, what happened wasn't okay. I deserved more as a child. I deserved more from my mum and dad. And it's not about blame. I went through different stages of anger, of upset, of, and now I'm at a stage where I'm in the UK again, where I'm building back up relationships and cutting relationships off. But I've been through going through my story and going, okay, that actually wasn't okay. It wasn't normal. I had all these narratives and these meanings and these beliefs that I'd made about myself and the world based off on everything that I'd been through on this timeline of pain. So I went back and I quite literally went to each thing and was like, okay, like, how did that make me feel? What stories come of that? Like, how's my body reacting to the world based off the fears that was created back then? Because my body was just in complete fight or flight constantly.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to hug you right now and really, because, and thank you for sharing this, because this is really really vulnerable, and I think also very brave that you set yourself to a new course and just take this decision. I'm not gonna do this anymore. And I think all that we need sometimes is just this firm decision. That's it. I'm not gonna live like this anymore. And it can be when you hit rock bottom or like a couple of years before. I hope couple of years before.
Yeah, it's one of them things. It's like a lot of people do have to won't change before that point, because like we said, they're just like, well, maybe I'll just keep going and keep. And until you literally cannot, you're like, well, I am not living my life like this anymore. And, some people do make that decision beforehand. And to anyone watching this, please know that you can. You can make that decision beforehand. But
and also that it's, a lot of people think it's not so bad. It's not so bad. It doesn't have to be really bad, so you don't have to lay somewhere and not knowing if you're conscious or not, or if your limbs are still there or not. It doesn't have to be so bad,
Yeah, and the thing is as well, yes, when I was explaining my story then, yes, like I was experiencing all these behaviours in terms of snapping and the anxiety and drinking and sleeping around, but I just thought that's who I was, and I was still, in quotation, having fun doing it. But I wasn't really happy because I had all these beliefs about myself, but they were unconscious. I just thought that's the way it is, that's the way my life is, and I still was having fun. But when I look back, I was being someone, I was trying to be someone else to suit everybody else kind of thing. I wasn't truly happy when I look back. But I think when you're in it and you're unconscious to it, you just think that's the way it has to be. Like, I'm an anxious person, so that's the way I have to be. Like, no, that's not the way it has to be. But you don't know that until you know it.
How did you start to build up your new story? Because that was old story, and for many people, they don't know what the new story is, and it's really hard for imagining them to at least to think about something better can be out there for them. How did you approach to that?
So, line in the sand moment, I was like, fuck this, not doing this anymore. I want something different. And I guess from that moment, I made it my mission to get curious. I think that was like the biggest thing for me, like to get really, really curious on why I was behaving the way I was behaving. I didn't know, like in that moment when I decided, I didn't know about emotional regulation. I didn't know about the way the mind works and how we're programmed when we're younger and all. I didn't know any of that. I wanted to just find it all out. So I guess how I created a new story is I got really fucking curious about I questioned everything. I was like, okay, does this really have to be it? Or is there another way? That was the first thing. I just questioned it. And then I started digging and I realized, obviously with all my research and like all my studying and things like that, I've always liked to learn, and I've always liked like I did psychology in college and in uni, but I dropped out of uni because I wasn't coping very well with it. And because of my relationship, that's another story. But I was always been into the way the mind works. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to do this. Everyone's story is going to be different. But for me, I really got into it. And then when I started to learn about everything and decide differently and realized that I could decide differently, I was like, right, okay, what do I want my life to look like? Not what does it have to look like, but if it was possible, what do I want my life to look like? So I was like, right, well, I don't want to look in the mirror and hate myself anymore. So then I looked and I was like, right, okay, in what ways can I get outside my comfort zone? Or in what ways am I trying to be someone I'm not right now? That was like the first little twinge of change. And I started getting outside my comfort zone, and really it seems insignificant to other people. And this is what I mean, your story is going to be so different. And I remember for years I wore glasses, but I didn't need them. I wore glasses because I thought they hid my face, because it was ugly, because I felt like I was hidden from the world. So I did this really dramatic. I remember being in my living room and being like, I'm not wearing these glasses anymore. But that was like huge for me. And I remember shitting myself and feeling so anxious about going outside without these glasses on. And I did it. And that was the first little instance of, okay, I can feel fear around something and still do it, come out the other side and change the way I view myself. And in that year, what really changed my pain, like my old story into a new story, was getting outside my comfort zone, learning how to emotionally regulate so I can get outside my comfort zone, and going back on my old story and being like, okay, how have my previous experiences been dictating how I show up in the present? Mm-hmm. So for instance, if I was angry and lashing out, that's because I didn't know how to feel anger safely, how to feel it, pause, and then choose my response. I didn't know how to do that because I'd never been taught how to do that. My definition of anger was violence.
Let it out.
Yeah, that's how you... So I went back and I was like, okay, where did I learn about anger? Why do I not feel safe to feel anger? And I was there for that part of me. A big part of Pain to Power is you get to be the person she needed back then. And that's when my story started to really change. When I made the decision, okay, maybe the version of me who was 6, who was in that bed, scared and listening to the footsteps, she just needed someone to fucking hold her and tell her that she's safe. So I was that person. The version of me at 16 who was sleeping around, feeling like that's the only way she could feel love, she needed to tell her that she deserves better love than that. So I was now that then person to teach her that, and to teach my body to feel safe in the world. And that is when my story started to change. And then when I started to see the world differently, I remember being like, whoa, something huge has shifted. I see myself differently. I see the world differently. Why doesn't all women know about this? Why don't they know about this? And then that's where the business was born, because I was like, nah, I'm not spending another day in this world knowing that there's women out there feeling like I did and not knowing the solution when there is one, So then I was like, right, let's fucking go.
Knowledge is always the power. I think when we start to psychoeducate ourselves, when we see what else is possible, and not just only hear some stories, but like get real case studies on, okay, this was done. And like, I guess many of people who will listen to your story, they will start to think about, okay, maybe I can change also something. And now is the time, not tomorrow or yesterday. Now is the time. So this is really, really powerful. And thank you for doing that. You mentioned before that you started to learn how to regulate your emotions. What do you do? What do you mean by that? So for those people who don't know what that means, like in short.
Of course. In short, emotional regulation is your ability to feel safe, to feel all emotions, to not make your emotions mean anything, because feeling emotion is part of the human experiences and it's fucking beautiful. Even anger, sadness, guilt, all of the emotions that are less, let's say, less desirable. I hate using the word good and bad emotions, because
they're not. They're not.
Yeah,
they're just pleasant and unpleasant. I say like this.
Exactly. Yeah, love that. Pleasant and unpleasant. It's feeling safe to feel it all, and then knowing that you're safe to feel it, but then knowing that also it's within your power to release that emotion, because when you feel an emotion, it's energy in motion, it's energy moving around your body, and it needs to be released, which is why I was so pent up, because all of the emotion from my childhood had never been released. Okay, so it's knowing and being trusting and learning the skills of asking and knowing what to do with, okay, I'm feeling this way, what do I need right now? What do I need to release it? Whilst also understanding that if you are being triggered with a certain emotion on occasion in patterns, then that's a little nudge from your body being like, there's some like work here to do. This is like, you get to uncover why you keep being triggered with this emotion in this certain situation. But emotional regulation, in short, is the ability to acknowledge, be aware of, accept, and let go of your emotions. That's emotional regulation.
Challenge the stories behind it.
Yeah, and then challenge the stories behind it. Yeah, because then your emotions no longer have a hold of you. Your pain no longer has a hold of you. Because when you're challenging, put it this way, when you react to something in the present, so say your partner's sat scrolling, and you're like, oh, you never listen to me, like you're scrolling on your phone again. You're not reacting to him scrolling on the phone. You're reacting to your mum and dad arguing when you were 6 and they were ignoring you 24/7. You're reacting from your pain. You're not reacting from the present moment. Because let's flip it, if you healed that part of you and you're emotionally regulated, you'd be calm and you'd say, look, you can still feel, you still might feel annoyed that he's scrolling, but you would approach that situation with calm, with control, with groundedness, and with clear communication. You wouldn't react, you'd pause and choose how to respond. That's emotional regulation.
Yeah, you would know that it bothers you because you're not seen, not because he is scrolling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What advice would you give somebody who is now really struggling with anxiety, who don't know how to find peace in themselves? Like how to approach this?
I think the first thing that I always say to my clients when it comes, and just women in general, if they're suffering from anxiety, and this might be a hard listen, but you're not suffering from anxiety and you're not an anxious person. What you're suffering from is the lack of skill and the lack of knowledge you have. And just like walking or learning to tie your shoelace, you can learn. Like it's simple, but it's not always easy. But it is really that simple. Like for so long, I attached to the identity of I'm an anxious person. And as soon as you attach to an identity like that, it gets really, really difficult to change because you believe that's who you are. So the first thing I'd say is no, and start to open up your mind to the possibility that you're not an anxious person, you're just a person who experiences anxiety. And what's the other thing I just said? Oh, and you don't suffer from anxiety, you suffer from the lack of knowledge. So if we know that, then it's like, okay, right now I don't feel safe in my body, but I know that I'm not an anxious person and I know that I get to learn the skills. So learn the skills. And the first step to that, I guess, would be to understand what anxiety is. Anxiety is only trying to keep you safe based off your past experiences. And you get to see anxiety as a friend, not an enemy, popping in to try and keep you safe. Yes, sometimes this friend is a bit of a Klingon. She's a stage 5 Klingon. She's annoying, but as soon as you stop resisting her and as soon as you stop saying, okay, I wish I didn't feel this anxiety, and turn towards her, I want you to imagine your anxiety is a friend, is a person, is a girl, is a woman, and turn towards her and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe today. I don't necessarily need you right now. However, what can I do to help you leave? What can I do to help you pass through? What do you need from me? What are you trying to tell me? You know, it's like having that energy with it. And then what you'll find is the more you do that, the less you'll feel it.
Yeah, and you also grow your self-confidence and you know that you are capable of doing it. Like a little kid who is trying to learn how to walk, and then when you walk, you start to run.
You're like, yeah,
exactly.
everywhere. That is exactly it. And I think that's what comes with them. Like, everyone is striving for more confidence. Everyone wants to be confident. Everyone wants to be. Emotional regulation is the foundation of everything, of thriving in your career, of better relationships, of higher confidence, because you start in that moment where you respond to a situation differently than you would in the past, and you don't react, you don't blow up, you don't say things you don't mean, or you don't run away in fear, or whatever you might do in your life when it comes to anxiety. When you catch yourself doing something differently, you're like, it's the best feeling in the world, because you're like, oh my God, like I've just done that, I've just responded differently to that. And that's where the confidence comes in, because you're like, oh, who am I?
Yeah. So true. Yeah. If you look back, like what are you most proud of from your journey?
Traveling is up there, because obviously I built the business. So I decided that I had to help women. I couldn't go a night more without knowing that there's women out there who don't know this shit. So I created the Grow and Glow Co. The last 3 years have been amazing. Like I've just got more and more. I felt more and more safe to be myself. I felt more and more safe to be like a leader and an authority in my industry. And the last 3 years have been amazing. And then obviously March this year, we went traveling, and the business like supported me whilst I traveled. I was earning money whilst I was traveling. And then when I look back at 2024, I'm like, what the hell? Like, I did that. Like, that would not have been possible if I didn't make that decision 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Or whenever it was, 2020. Well, yeah, 5 years ago now, 2020. Oh, the years are going too fast.
It's just blank.
I know. But yeah, so that's definitely one of the proudest things is traveling with the business. And the second most proudest, I would say, how safe I feel within relationships. So I've been with my partner we actually got together just as I was going through like the rock bottomness, and the closeness that we feel, and how much a part of this journey he's been, how supportive he is, and just how safe we feel with each other. I never thought I'd find that, because all my relationships in the past, including with family, with males, have just been very, very, like, I always say, they've been like the roller coaster, and then Aaron, my current partner, he's the teacups, in like a really safe, like calm way. I'm like, we're not up and down anymore, like it's really, really calm. And that took a lot of getting used to for me at first, because I was like, something must be wrong, because he was so safe. But it's just that I wasn't used to it, and I guided myself through that, and now we're as strong as ever. And now I'm back in the UK. It's the safest I've ever felt here. I've visited from Australia before, but I've always been like, there is no chance I'll spend more than 2 weeks in the UK. It, like, all of these things, and I've been able to come home this time round and build relationships or cut relationships off. I am lethal with my scissors now. If someone doesn't respect me, or if someone doesn't feel safe to me, I'm just like, no, goodbye. Like, because I've got evidence of the kind of people that I want in my life, so I don't back down from, I'm not shy of cutting people out. So yeah, that's what I'm most proud of, definitely my relationships and the traveling, because that was like my vision come true to a T, and I was sat there and I was just like, oh my God, I've done it.
Yeah, that's what you said. Like, you had to relearn how to feel good in, like, that this stable relationship can be also good. I had it the same, because we were used to, from our childhood, like a lot of drama, everything has to going on up and down like a roller coaster. And then you find the person who is stable, and you're like,
ooh,
something's missing, you know?
Yeah, like something, because you get addicted to the drama, and I don't mean like consciously addicted, but your body is literally like, that is the norm, and in a way that's what your body feels safe with, and your mind feels safe with. Your mind, because your mind's number one, or your brain's number one function is to keep you alive and to keep you safe. And alive and safe to your brain means normal, or what it's used to, what it's familiar with. So if you're familiar with up and down, with arguing, with the drama, when you find someone that's actually full of green flags, full of the calmness and no drama, and you can actually sit and have a conversation with, your brain and your body's like, this is not normal. This is unsafe. We should, like, something should be happening here, but it's about
there's no chemistry.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, it's too nice for me, it's not working. And it's not, your body's just used to the fucking shit show, but you get to train your body and your mind to be like, no, like, this is good, this is
good. Yeah. This is good. Yeah, I totally agree. What advice would you give to someone who is maybe now feels stuck or unsure how to begin their journey, and they want to have a happier life? You know, when you have this feeling, I could be living differently, this is not for me, I don't feel okay in my life, in my circumstances. What would be your advice to someone like that?
My advice to someone who feels like that and wants to transmute their pain into power, and like really go through that process of, I don't even like to say becoming the powerful woman, because you already are. It's just about coming home to her and rediscovering her. But my advice would be, follow the pull. You have those feelings that you want to change your life. You have that, like, that pull and that desire for a reason. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, because that's a lot of people go their whole lives completely unconscious, completely oblivious, and without that pull. So if you have it, then follow it, because that is your heart's desire, and it means that you are absolutely capable. My next advice would be to trust yourself, and to know that it's not always going to be this, like, really, what's the word, like, straight line to your power story. Like, it's not going to be always be this, like, consistent, like, happiness and wins and big, like, moments, aha moments of, you're going to go through the shit. You have to go through the shit, or not even that you have to, you get to go through the shit, because
You have
that's
to
how
transform yourself.
yes, that's how you
Reborn.
come out of the other side. So know that it's not always going to be smooth sailing. You're going to feel like even when you achieve these wins and you start to on this journey, you're gonna feel like your whole world's falling apart, but it has to, because you're creating a new one. So it has to fall apart. So take things slow. Start with like really questioning everything, everything, but just small sections of life. Like, what do I believe about this? Is that necessarily true? Okay, if it's not, what do I want to believe? And then just really going through those motions and taking things slow and trusting yourself.
Yeah, I think trusting yourself is the biggest, because I think many people, many women especially, they don't do the first step because they don't trust themselves. Because they were taught from the young age on that it's scary, they are not capable of, and they need somebody else to take care of them. And I think this is really huge when you realize that you are capable, that you can do it, that it's okay, it's safe, it's good, it's desirable to live your life on your terms. Then I think many, many things change.
I think with trust, if you're listening and that's like the struggle part in terms of starting and wanting to follow that pull, but you're like, oh my God, no, I don't trust myself to see it through. I don't trust myself to X, Y, Z, whatever it might be. Think of one small thing that you're fearful of. And it doesn't have to be huge, like the glasses thing with me. That was such a huge turning point because it was like a little aha moment. It was like, oh, like I can do something that I've thought I've had to do for ages or that I've believed, and then go completely against it and come out the other side and have a completely different perspective of it. And when you do that, when you get outside your comfort zone a little bit and do these little things that might seem insignificant to everyone else, it might be that you go on a solo date, it might be that you book in one session with a coach, something that you've never, like just small things. But that's going to build your self-trust, even if it's something small, because you'll out off the other back of it, you'll be like, oh, well, I did something I didn't think I could do. So it's slowly building that belief in yourself.
Yeah, so true, so true. I love it. Anything else you want to add? Like, I have to be mindful of the time. So to wrap up, maybe, where can people find you and your work?
So you're best off going to Instagram. I am on TikTok, but I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok. I'm definitely, I'm getting there. But yeah, Instagram is your best bet. It's thegrowglow.co on Instagram. And yeah, that's your best bet. That's your best bet.
Thank you, Courtney. It was really a pleasure to having you here.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, you're really an inspiration.
Thank you.
So keep on doing that, and I hope many people will join your programs, your coaching courses, whatever you have, and because this is powerful what we do. You know, this is powerful.
Like, we're changing lives on a daily basis, and I don't think sometimes, even when you get to our like where we're at, sometimes you just brush past that fact as well. But like, we're both waking up every day and we're like making an impact, and I think it's so special. And then for the listeners, it's like, do you think that we ever thought that we would be here like 15, 10? Exactly. So you don't know where your journey's going to take you. You don't know where your pain to power journey is going to take you. It's mad and amazing.
Yeah, just believe in yourself and just go step by step. When I think if you follow the hardest desire, then you will come to somewhere where you cannot even dream of.
Yeah, like this was not on my bingo card. Like it was not. But
life is full of mysteries.
We're here and it's amazing. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you, and thank you for taking your time to being with us.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, wishing you all good and well, and maybe chat soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.